Well, if you were on social media on Wednesday and Tuesday, you got quite the treat because you saw two of the guys that are, have bet against the Big Ten, bet against Indiana quite a bit this season, come out and essentially say they were wrong. And I want to say this, I know Paul Finebaum gets a lot of crap, and we've given Paul Finebaum a lot of crap on this show. I do respect what Paul Finebaum did here. Was it the most sincere video in the world? No, I don't think so. But he did come out. He did say it. And even if he wasn't looking at the camera for most of the time because he was maybe trying to hide some tears, he did come out and say the Big Ten is the best conference. We'll get to Paul here in just a second. As far as Josh Pate goes, I've always kind of, I got some of my things with Josh Pate that I'm not super fond of, but overall, I think he's a good guy. I think he does a good job. I think he's entertaining. I think he leans a little bit too much to the SEC for my liking sometimes, but he did come out and he did give us a pretty comical response to Indiana winning the national championship, admitted where he was wrong. And I think if you're an Indiana fan, even if you're mad at him for picking the way he did this season, you still look at this and saying, yeah, all right, we like you quite a bit after that. Let me know in the comments if you're an Indiana fan, what are your thoughts on these guys? Did you feel like they were both sincere? Did you like what they had to say? Did you not like it? What were your thoughts? I'm going to get into it here right now. So let's go on over. Let's do Paul Finebaum first and see what he has to say.
There can be debate on whether Indiana had the best season in college football history, but
and that's true. There can be debate because we're never going to see these teams play together, right? So we're never going to see 2019 LSU. We're never going to see 2001 Miami. But the truth is that Indiana went 16-0, won a national championship. Pretty incredible. So anyway,
but there can be no debate. It is the greatest story in the history of the game.
And I appreciate him saying that, but Paul, you did just call it a cute story last week, and I got on you about that. But he's admitting he was wrong.
And what made it even more amazing is how people misunderstood what Curt Cignetti was doing in Bloomington. But let me assure you, nobody was more incorrect in understanding that process than me. Almost everything I said throughout the season about him and about Indiana was wrong, and it was an epic failure.
He's right. He said that it was a cute story. He said that Indiana did not. The exact quote is basically it was not a good hire of Curt Cignetti, or like they did regret the hire of Curt Cignetti or something like that. He said that, I believe, at the end of last season after they lost to Notre Dame, which is completely preposterous to me. But he's right. Everything he had to say about Indiana this season was dismissive, they don't have the talent. They don't have this. They don't have that. And they proved him and just about everybody else wrong this season that, Indiana did have everything everything and more than what people said. Did they blow Miami out? No, but, they blew out Alabama. They blew out Oregon, and they looked really good doing it too.
On my part, there was no question Indiana was the best team. And yes, the Big Ten is the best conference in the country. We congratulate Coach Cignetti, Indiana, and the Big Ten for an extraordinary run.
Oh, there you go. Paul Finebaum, who has been a thorn in the side of many Big Ten fans, many people, not even Big Ten fans, just people wanting their schedules to get some respect. He comes out, he says that the Big Ten is the best conference in college football. We'll see how that sticks. We'll see how that lands. We'll see the credit that the Big Ten gets in some of these way too early top 25s. I put mine out. I only had 6 teams in the SEC in mine. I've looked at some others, and there are some others out there that have 8 or 9 in there. I don't know how you get to that point. I don't know how people have Auburn ranked. I don't know how people have Florida ranked. I don't know how people have some of those teams ranked, but they do. And at this point, it's, as much as it's nice to hear stuff like that, I don't want Paul Finebaum just to say it. I do want the respect from the rest of the country, not just in the rankings, but in the perception. Rank all the SEC teams you want. Whatever. I don't care. What I do care about is if Ohio State beats Illinois, are you going to say Ohio State didn't play anybody? If Washington beats Iowa, are you going to say, that's not a good good win for Washington. It should be a good win. It should be recognized as a good win because those are solid teams in the Big Ten. And even if they're not competing for national championships, they are teams that are very good and could beat other very good teams in the Big Ten. So let's move on over to Josh Pate. All right, got Josh Pate here pulled up, and he's got the clown nose on. I think this is his Sarah McLachlan special, he said. So you know what? For Indiana fans, this should feel good. Let's see how this one goes.
I am my own Sarah McLachlan special tonight. Let's go to the tape. October 11th, Indiana at Oregon. I picked Oregon. Indiana won the game 30-20. It got worse. December 6th, Indiana, Ohio State, Big Ten championship game. I picked Ohio State. Indiana won 13-10. It got worse. January 1st, New Year's Day, New Year, same me. Indiana played Alabama. I picked Alabama. Indiana won by 5 touchdowns. They had backups in, as I recall, in the second half. It got worse. January 19th, 24 hours ago. Indiana played Miami. Indiana outnumbered Miami in their own building. I didn't care. I picked Miami to win. Indiana won 27-21. I picked against them 4 times. I went 0-4 in those games. They went 4-0 in those games. En route to going 16-0. That makes them national champions, and it makes me a broken, confused man with nothing to console him but a cold microphone. Congratulations to Curt Cignetti. Congratulations to Indiana and that entire staff. I have been dunked on as painfully and repeatedly as I've ever been dunked on by anyone this side of 6th grade gym class. And I hate that this is happening to me, but I will learn from it. You guys won, and I'm left here to pick up the pieces.
First off, great acting by Josh Pate. And I'm not saying great acting as in he's not being sincere. That's just great acting on his part. But I do think that he was being sincere here in the fact that he recognized that he was wrong in his picks and Indiana is the better team. Look, one of the reasons why I do have more respect for a guy like Josh Pate than some other people out there is Josh Pate does fess up when he's wrong, right? He came out here, picked Alabama to win the national championship. Alabama loses week 1 against Florida State. And he came on the show and he said, I'm wrong. I was wrong. I don't believe it's going to happen anymore. We'll see what happens. Obviously, it's still a long season, but he came out and said he was wrong. He backs up what he says, even when he's wrong. And so I do have to give Josh Pate credit there. Look, I'll be honest. I don't think that Josh Pate should be in the same conversation of like SEC homer type of person as a Paul Finebaum. And I've seen the comments out there of like Josh Pate's becoming the new Paul Finebaum of ESPN. I think that Josh Pate has too much respect for himself and his show and his quality for him to go out there and just make ludicrous statements like that. I think that Josh Pate has enough talent that he doesn't have to come out there. And I'm not saying that Paul Finebaum doesn't have talent. Paul Finebaum obviously is working off a reputation that he's built long over the years. And when you have a reputation at this point, this late in your career, you just have to go with it. And so I'm by no means saying Paul Finebaum is not talented or anything like that. I'm just saying that I think Josh Pate still has a lot ahead of him in his career, and I don't think he's going to resign himself to being the next Paul Finebaum or anything. Josh Pate is an entertaining guy. Josh Pate is a type of guy who has an expansive vocabulary, utilizes it well. He talks a lot about the SEC, but you know what? He's also from the South. I don't mind so much if people talk about a lot about the SEC. It's just about giving the teams who win their credit when they do win. And right here, Josh Pate gave Indiana credit. He said on Twitter that the Big Ten is the best conference. He said on the show that the Big Ten is the best conference. He gave the Big Ten credit. And as much as I do think that Josh Pate probably likes the SEC better than the Big Ten, which, you know, he has every reason, you know, every right to do that. He has, he can like what he wants and dislike what he wants. I also think that in this scenario and other scenarios, you've seen Josh Pate recognize that he's wrong, admit it, and move on from there. So do I expect every single media member that picked against Indiana to go out there and say stuff like this? No, not necessarily. I mean, I would even I would have to come out there and say I picked Indiana to go 10-2 this year. I was wrong. Now, I think I was still one of the people higher on them than anybody else. I had them ranked 11th in my preseason poll. I don't think anybody else really had them over like 18th. I mean, there was maybe a few AP voters in there that was with me. Zach, I think, had them either 11th or 12th as well. But as far as I'm concerned, like even me, somebody who was looked upon as one of the highest people on Indiana, I said they were going to go 10-2, and I said that they had a really good possibility of going to the college football playoffs with how difficult that schedule was. Long and behold, they go 12-0. They win the Big Ten championship 13-0. They get a bye and they win 3 straight games in the college football playoff. They go 16-0. Even the guys that were out there telling me that Indiana was going to go 12-0 this season, I don't think even them were picking them to win the national championship. Maybe they were. Maybe you are somebody that said Indiana's going to be 12-0. I would love to see the tweet where you said that. If you link that down below, I would give you all the props in the world if you did that. But even if you didn't, if you're an Indiana fan, you got to love this season. You got to love the media eating their crow right now, including me. I got to eat my crow as well, even though I was one of the highest people in Indiana going into the season. I wasn't high enough. And I think a lot of people could learn a lesson from that, not just about Kirk Cinetti in Indiana, but also just in this new college football order that we have here. It's exciting. It's crazy. And only the best coaches are going to survive. There are going to be coaches that quit. There are going to be coaches who leave. And that doesn't make them a bad coach. That does mean they are a coach that could not handle it in this day and age of college football. We'll see what coaches can. One coach we know can handle it for sure is Kirk Cinetti. So Indiana fans, you have a lot to be thankful for. You have a lot to be grateful for. And you have a lot of media members that will most likely be coming out and saying, you know what? I was wrong. And let's give them their credit when they say they're wrong. But at the same time, let's also make sure they know next season, hey, don't rank him 18th. This is a really good program, a really good head coach.